Yes, most of you. Which in Japan, you can also ask all those questions after the presentation. So let me start. I hope as a chair. Is this okay? Okay. So yeah. So please allow me to share my. Hello, mic test. Mic. Hello. Okay. So please allow me to share what we have been doing so far in Remittances University. And before I start, my co-author and my supervisor is here with me, Professor Maswana, and my colleague from the Graduate School of Economics from Remittances, also Ms. Roxana Peña. And of course, my parents, my supportive parents are here. Okay. Yeah, so to start my presentation, of course, you can see the title from this presentation. Do non-monetary forms of remittances matter for entrepreneurship development? Evidence from Filipino migrants in Japan. So before even delving into the mathematical and econometrics of this study, let me tell you a very short story. So there is this person, her name is Tita Ana. She went to Japan when she was 18 years old. She worked in Japan. She married after a couple of years. Now she has children. She's still working after 30 years. Why do you think she still needs to work if she has a husband, a Japanese husband? Her husband is providing well, but she still has to work. The common answer would be because she has to send remittances. So remittances has been part of her daily life. So even if her husband provides for the household, still, she doesn't want to get the income of her husband just to send it to her family in the Philippines. But there are days that she doesn't have any work. So this is a very typical story of a Filipino migrant. There are days that there are no work. So what happens is she just ramages some of her items at home, gets a big box, tries to put all of these items inside and sends it as a way of providing for her family in the Philippines. So this is a typical Japanese migrant, a Filipino migrant in Japan story. So let me tell you why did I start with this introduction. So based on, this is the outline. Next, please. So because remittances and entrepreneurship development has been there for a long time. This nexus has been studied and it has been there since the study of remittances has begun. However, while these remittances remain a valuable economic part of every country, these have not led to sustained and long-term development. Why? Because it causes moral hazard effect on labor supply, and worse, it creates a dependency behavior among the household. And because of this, remittances has remained one of the sources of income for dependent households. And mind you, this is very common. This is a true story because every family who has a relative abroad, they would always wait for their relative to send remittances. How many among you here have relatives abroad, parents? Yes, so they're sending remittances. every month, maybe twice a month or twice a year. So it really depends. Next, please. So the migrant's aspiration, which means that the typical remittances and entrepreneurship studies focused on how these remittances have been used for conventional purposes only, which tends to be restrictive. Why did I say it's restrictive? Because these are only used or channeled to consumption. So whenever the household receives the money, the typical or the normal, the default setting for the household, because they have to sustain their lives, they use it for their daily consumption needs. So as households become increasingly reliant on this inflow, the impending return of the migrant after the migration duration raises critical questions about its sustainability of their economic being. Thus, the impact of remittances to spur development through entrepreneurship has yet to be translated to more sustainable livelihood and enterprises. Next, please. So, as I've said, what is missing in the picture? So I started saying that this has been studied. The idea of remittances and entrepreneurship has been there. It is not a new concept. However, we believe, or we strongly believe that they have only provided a narrow monetary-centric view of migrant behavior. So most studies that you see in the literature are talking about the monetary flows of remittances, right? So just the money, but they ignore another aspect of remittances, which might be important. We still don't know at this part, which might be important to spur development in households or the entrepreneurship development. So non-monetary remittances in this paper encompass tangible goods such as used cars, agricultural machinery, and computers, and intangible goods such as skills, expertise, technical knowledge. So how many among you here have received goods from your relatives abroad at one point in your life? They sent you, I think a lot of us have received goods. It can be in the form of food, clothes, computer, right? Yeah, so computer or any gadget that you receive from your relatives abroad. So this has not been studied and focused on in the literature. So let me give you next one, the research question that we are trying to answer. So to what extent do non-monetary forms of remittances significantly influence the likelihood? We are talking about the probability of business entrepreneurship, especially in the developing country setting. So we tested the combined impacts of combining the monetary and non-monetary. Take note that remittances is there, the monetary remittances. But what we are trying to do is within the same framework, within the same analysis, we are integrating the non-monetary forms of remittances. So we want to see how integrating this aspect of non-monetary remittances will change the patterns of household behavior in terms of engaging in entrepreneurship development. So next, please. So in the literature, so we see a lot of studies that have understood or tried to explain the different models of remittance behavior, which centers on the family, which is the altruistic motive. The altruistic motive here just says that the migrant sends money or sends remittances because they care for their household. But other studies also introduce the self-interest motive, wherein the migrant expects something from their household. So it can be because once they return, they need something in their household, or they need something to support them when they come back in terms of investment. And they also have the exchange motive, wherein they send the money, they ask their household or they ask their relatives to manage a business or to take care of this house or to take care of the children. So these are the exchange motives based on the following studies. And finally, there is a mixed motive. So within the same individual, there are different or there are varied mixed motives. It can be, of course, altruism is there. It can be because he wants to provide, or he wants to engage in a business. That's why he's sending remittances. So altruism and self-interest can be mixed, and all other kinds of behavior. Also, several studies have understood the different determinants of remittances. So when we say determinants, these are the factors affecting the migrant's behavior when it comes to sending remittances. So we have different results based on the different studies, of course, but obviously income and employment is always positive. So the higher the income of the migrant, we expect that the higher they send. Okay, in terms of their employment, of course, for a migrant who is employed, they are expected to send more. And in terms of the other variables, several studies have varied, meaning they can be contradicting each other. So these are not definite results that we can see. Okay, next, please. So in terms of the nexus, the existing literature of remittances and entrepreneurship, so as I've said, this has been studied. This has been there since long. So there are two effects. It can be positive, wherein remittances are used for entrepreneurship. It can be a financial cushion to help the household to start a business, or it can be negative, which means that, as I've said, it can be a moral hazard to labor supply, or it may create dependency or within the household. Okay, and lastly, of course, non-monetary remittances have been there in the study separately. So it can be in terms of physical goods, sending food, I think I saw literature on balikbayan boxes, so physical goods. Emotional support is also a non-monetary form of support, and even skills and knowledge, sharing what they know or what they have learned from their experiences abroad and sharing it to their families. But next, please. So what we know so far. So these are all the studies that have been laid out based on how we are understanding the remittances and entrepreneurship nexus. So this is based on the literature. So what we are trying to do now, what we are trying to tell you to forward, next please, we want to integrate the non-monetary forms of remittances within the same framework, within the same analysis, and understand how this can affect the probability or the likelihood of entrepreneurship within household. Okay, so we will do this, of course, first, next please. Yeah, so I've explained this because there is a limited literature on non-monetary remittances for entrepreneurship development. And to the best of our knowledge, this is the first attempt to integrate non-monetary remittances in the model, in the analysis that have been used in the past years. So, and arguably, so in Japan, so why is this also important for us? Because we know that Japan is a source of technology. So most technology embedded capital goods are from Japan. Like you can see surplus shops, computers, cars. These are big goods that have been sent. So it's not easy to send this, but it has been a market in the Philippines. And yeah, I'm glad I'm talking to a Filipino audience, because whenever I present this to like an international audience, it's difficult for them to understand the concept of Japan surplus. So it's difficult. But now that you understand what I'm saying, Japan surplus is just all over the place, right? So incorporating these forms can help MSMEs become more innovative and productive and create jobs. And ignoring this would lead to misleading migration and remittance policies. Okay, so how do we start integrating these non-monetary forms of remittances? So in our study, we developed a theoretical model based on the seminal work of Stark and Le. So the key difference in our model is that we assumed that return migration is the motive. Okay, so aside from the altruistic motive, there is the return migration that will happen. There is the migrant wants to return to his country, and thus he wants to make an investment in order that whenever he goes back, he can sustain the same or a better livelihood or a better economic well-being. So we all want that. So all migrants have that desire. And unfortunately, I think most of the migrants who were able to do this, they returned to their country without anything. So that's a sad reality for our migrant workers. So in the model, the migrants' motivation to send remittances is twofold. First, to uphold an informal contract of obligations in providing support to his household. So we still have that altruistic motive because they still want to send remittances. And this is the self-interest motive, to smooth consumption upon returning to his home country. Next, please. So what we do, so the key difference between the study of Stark or Le is we redefined remittances, okay? So if you noticed in these notations, in both of those studies, they have R pertaining to the monetary remittances. So in our study, we differentiated between monetary forms of remittances, which is RM, and then the non-monetary forms of remittances, which is RN. Okay? However, take note that the monetary forms of remittances, we still believe that a part of it is invested and another part of it is consumed. So you have two forms of RM. And then I is investment. I bar is the net profit from investment. And of course, for economists, you would be very familiar with C for consumption, Y for income. And then, yeah, I think those are common for models. And then household and migrant. Next, please. Oh, by the way, so this model is a two-period model wherein in the first period, the migrant is in the host country, which is abroad. And in the second period, because we are assuming return migration, he's going back to his home country. So in the second period, he is now in the home country. Okay, that's why if you see there, there's the income of migrant in the home country, the Y sub M raised to O. Okay, next please. So this is the summary of the notations that we used. So take note that this model is uses the utility maximization framework using derivatives, first order derivatives to get into the gist or what we want to analyze. Okay, so as I've said, R is the remittances where we separated monetary and non-monetary forms. Okay, I'll go through it, and if you have questions, you can ask them later. And I'll just explain some of the notation, important parts of the notation. I'm not gonna go through everything, okay? So yeah, for some of you who are mathematicians, of course, the moment you see it, you understand. Okay, so you see there's an alpha. So the alpha there is the weight that represents the non-monetary forms of remittances. Okay, so the weight that represents the non-monetary forms of remittances to the total remittances sent by the migrant. Okay, and then you have there the mu. So the mu there is introduced to represent the portion of the monetary remittances that are earmarked for investment purposes. Okay, so mu is for investment, and then the rest of the monetary remittances is used by the migrant for consumption. Okay, so at the end, you'll see the R, M tilde. That's the monetary remittances used for consumption plus I, their investment, which is the non-monetary remittances plus a portion of the monetary remittances earmarked for investment. Okay, next, please. So we have the investment equations. So this was given from the previous one, but we have the I bar, which is our return from investment, wherein the theta there is the return or the rate of return from their investment. Okay, next please. Then of course, in every utility maximization, we are looking at the consumption. Okay, so since we are looking at the two-period model, you have the consumption in the first period of the migrant, consumption in the second period of the migrant, and the household consumption in the first period and the second period. So you will notice there that in the second period, because we are assuming that the migrant has returned from the host country, then the income of the migrant in the origin country or the host country plus whatever returns or the I bar, whatever returns he gets from the investment that he made in the first period. Okay, and for the household, since in the second period, there is no migrant already, so he is restricted on his own income. And the consumption in the first period is his income, because we assume that he is still part of the labor force, so he has his income. And the RM tilde, remember, it's the remittances that is used for consumption. Okay, next please. So this is familiar to, if you have taken mathematical economics, you'll see that this utility function is a two-period model wherein we introduce the beta as the discount factor for the second period consumption. Okay, similar to the study of Stark and Le, because we assume altruism, we integrated the household utility to the migrant's utility, because whatever the household utility is, it affects how migrants feel. Okay, so if the households are happy, the migrant is also happy. So that's the altruistic part of this model. So we maximize this subject to their constraint. So based on the mathematical derivations, we used first order conditions. So we got the following propositions. So for if you have taken the mathematical economics, you will easily understand the first, second, and third proposition. So what is the first one? It's the change in the remittances based on the change in the income. So anyway, so maybe the slides may be shared for them later. So I'll just go over. So the first one, this is the result that we got here are the similar to what the other studies are based on the migrants' behavior when it comes to their income. So as their income increases, remittances would increase. As their income decreases, obviously their remittances would decrease. And this happened during the pandemic, right? So most migrants who lost their jobs, of course, they cannot send money anymore. And then in terms of the household income, so if the income of the household increases, the tendency of the migrant is to decrease their remittances, right? So automatically, if the income of the household decreases, they will increase their remittances. That's how remittances, or that's how rational human beings behave. And then the last one, in terms of their expected income in the future. So the moment they return, how does it affect their remittances? So it's negative. It means that if they expect lower income in the future, they will try to send more money. If their expected income in the future is higher, like they are assured of a stable job, then their remittances are lower. So now let's go to the second proposition in terms of their investment. So again, we use the same. So in terms of their income, as their income increases, their investment also increases. If the expected income in the second period is higher, they will invest lower because they are expecting that they will have a stable job upon return. So investment may not be that lucrative for them. Okay. However, in the last part, remember that theta there is the rate of return that they expect to get from their investment. So in this case, we see here that obviously, as a rational human being, if they expect a higher return from their investment, they will invest more. But during the mathematical exercise that we did, we came across with the condition that this is positive only if. So if you're familiar with this left side, this is the risk-averse, Arrow-Pratt risk-averse equation. So what is, we tried to give an interpretation of this, which means that this is the risk and return condition for the migrant. That is based on their perception of the risk and whatever returns they get, then that will affect their investment behavior. Okay, so we call that the risk return condition, or the RRC. So in the third proposition, then we say if RRC holds, then their behavior towards sending non-monetary forms of remittances and monetary forms of remittances for investment are both positive. So if they expect that their returns from these both forms of investment, monetary and non-monetary, are positive, then they will invest more. Okay? So based on the model, we tried to extend it to focus on the non-monetary forms of remittances. So we assert two arguments. First, that the inclusion of non-monetary forms of remittances can augment or amplify the effects of monetary forms. So remember, we are still looking at the monetary forms. We are not saying that these are not needed. We are still looking at it, but we are integrating the non-monetary forms of remittances. And that by understanding this, migrant can make informed investment decisions that will maximize returns. So based on those two and based on the mathematical models, we derived this theorem wherein the expected return is affected by the form of remittances, wherein we believe that the expected return is higher for non-monetary forms of remittances than for monetary forms of remittances, if and only if these two conditions are met. Of course, the first one, we are familiar, it's the risk and return condition based on how they assess the risk and return. But this one, mu, remember, is the part of the monetary form of remittances that is allotted for investment. So this is the share of monetary form of remittances to the total remittances, okay? It should be greater than the alpha. Alpha is the share of the non-monetary. So still, we can see here that even if we integrate the non-monetary, because monetary still plays a role, the balance or the share of these two forms of remittances, still there's the monetary forms of remittances. And if this holds, then alpha should be less than 1 and mu should be greater than alpha. Okay? So based on these predictions of the model, we want to test empirically if this is really true for migrants, for Filipino migrants in Japan. So as I've said, I've been privileged to conduct this study in Japan because first, Japan is a source of technologically embedded capital goods. And second, because Japanese or Filipino migrants in Japan this part of the experiences of Filipino migrants in Japan has not received much attention, okay? So what we did so far, next please. So a brief background of the Filipino migrants in Japan. So we are the 4th largest foreign community in Japan. And apparently data shows that 50% of Filipino migrants are permanent residents. So there is a very interesting story about this. So as I've said, Tita Ana, she went there to work, but she married the Japanese. She stayed there. She's staying there for more than 30 years now. She's 56 right now. And she's still working and sending remittances. So this part of migrants are permanent residents, okay? And this is much higher than the general average. So most of them are permanent residents. And if you can see, this is the data. Majority of them are found in the Kansai, Chubu, and Kanto regions. Okay, so Kansai, famous places, Osaka, Kyoto. Kanto, you have Tokyo. Chubu, you have Nagoya. Okay, next please. So what we did, of course, this is a micro level study. So we developed our questionnaire. So we started to get to know our respondents. So casual conversations, and for me, I had to ask them questions, their experiences, how they started, what are they doing now? Okay, so casual conversations, and then we integrated all of these interviews and the literature reviews, and then we constructed the questionnaire. So first we used the paper questionnaire, and we pre-tested it in one of the churches in Otsu City. And by the way, I'm from Shiga, just beside Kyoto. So Otsu City is part of Shiga. Okay, so we pre-tested it 2 times, both face-to-face and online. And then we conducted the survey. Okay, so during this time, the stories are very interesting. for their experiences. Okay, next please. So given that there is no available list of Filipino migrants, so we started with non-probability sampling techniques using convenience and snowball sampling. However, it was interesting to note that majority, I think, did I put, yeah, can you go to the next slide? So yeah, so based on the distribution of the respondents, still majority of our, most of our respondents hail from the top three, the top three regions of Japan: Chubu, Kanto, and Kansa. Okay, so I'll just give you a brief profile of the respondents. Next, please. So in terms of their age distribution, so and their remittance behavior, so you can see there that monetary remittances are more prominent for younger people. So right now we have the permanent residents, the female permanent residents, and because of the new program, like the technical intern training program, they have been hiring younger trainees, like 30s, 40s. So these are like contract workers for 5 years. So in terms of our model, they have to return after 5 years, okay? So most of them prefer the monetary forms. And in terms of gender, so females are more into sending non-monetary remittances. Next, please. In terms of the return intention, so we also included their intention to return in the survey. So those who are decided to return in the future, they're sending non-monetary forms of remittances. Okay, and then interestingly, in terms of their residence in the Philippines, where they are located, so we have Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. So we can see here that those who are from Visayas and Mindanao, they maybe this is due to the location, the cost of sending, and the distance, right? So they are more of the monetary. It's easier to send money. Okay. And then next one, in terms of their income, so this is also interesting because there's a point there. At one point, those who are earning more, the tendency or the probability of them sending non-monetary remittances is also higher. Okay, so this is maybe because they are now able to have income, stable income, and buy, or yeah, they can provide more for their families. And for their length of stay, so also those who have been adept or those who have assimilated to the culture of Japan, so maybe they already know where to buy the cheapest products or where to send all of these. So they are also into sending non-monetary forms of remittances. So this is the preliminary analysis that we did. So based on the preliminary, the data, next please, we constructed our empirical model. So since we have a binary Entrep variable, binary dependent variable, so we used the probit estimation technique wherein we separated monetary and non-monetary forms of remittances. And to get the joint effect, we have the interaction effect. So the question is, do you have a business or not? So 1, 0. And then in terms of the monetary remittances, we asked them about their total remittances in the last 12 months, divided into 3 categories. 1, no remittance. 2, less than 200,000. 3, more than 200,000. And non-monetary remittances, you might be wondering how we measure this. So based on the survey questionnaire, so we listed down several items. So food, clothing, toys, automobile, up to the biggest that we can think of. So we just ask them, do you send yes or no? Yes or no. And then if they are involved with at least one, or they have experienced at least one, then we have they have sent these kinds of remittances. Okay, so based on that, the results of our study, yeah, so this is the descriptive statistics. So yes. Okay, next please. Yeah, so we tried to separate first the we tested without the interaction effect, and we can see from, okay, so there are 5 models here. Take note that for the sake of presentation, I did not include all the controls because it's going to be like a very long table. And yeah, so the controls are there. So model 1, no control. Model 2, It only includes the migrant characteristics. Model 3, it only includes the economic profile, meaning their average income. So if, can you go back to the descriptive statistics? Yeah, so average income and then present occupation. And then third one, the fourth model includes the full model. And then the last one, we tried to interact length of stay and their education. So yeah, so based on the model, we can see that in both remittances, they are significant at all levels in terms of the probability. Take note that we are looking at the probability of entrepreneurship here. But the monetary is negative and the non-monetary is positive. So why do you think the monetary is negative? So remember that we are looking at the migrant behavior. It's not the household behavior. So for us, for example, for me, if my income, if I send more money to my family, okay, the probability of me engaging in a business would be lower because I have smaller income, right? So, so for people who are not sending, just like myself, for example, the probability of me saving more so I can invest later after I come back is higher. So it's the negative. Okay, for non-monetary, those who are sending more have the higher probability of engaging in a business. Now, next, please. So based on the interaction, so we are interested in the combined effect, meaning we are integrating both of monetary and non-monetary in the model, in the existing framework, okay? So to understand this better, so we see that those who are earning more are more significant, like they are high, there's a higher likelihood of engaging in a business. So to understand this better, next please. So we have here a simple diagram based on the econometrics. We can see here that, okay, so I can stay here. So at this level, remember the one here is the zero remittance, zero monetary remittance. The probability of entrepreneurship is almost zero. But when the migrant sends non-monetary remittance, the probability is higher. So this is like an interesting idea. So why could be, what could be the possible reason for this? Because non-monetary forms of remittances, it can give the household an instant entrepreneurship idea, right? So especially now that we have the digital platforms, when someone sends you something from abroad, oh, I can post this, I can sell it without even the need for a large capital, without even the need for money. So that's the probable reason why, even with only the monetary, non-monetary remittances, then the probability of entrepreneurship is higher. Now going to the interaction. So the interaction term is in this area, right? So as you are combining both of these remittances, then the probability, the predicted probability of entrepreneurship also increases. So what is our conclusion? Next, please. So first, we focus on the theoretical findings. So we have shown that combining both forms of remittances is necessary to establish a foundation for entrepreneurship, where non-monetary forms can support the probability of starting an enterprise. So the key component that we have shown a while ago is that diversifying the remittance portfolio, wherein the mu and the alpha has its own share, and they can achieve the best results by doing this optimal combination. And second, based on the empirical model, independent effects, yes, they both impact the entrepreneurship. And combining them, complementary effects, it exhibits that they have a positive influence on entrepreneurship development. So next, please. So this highlights that the presence of non-monetary forms of remittances significantly matters for entrepreneurial activities. So next, please. However, it should be recognized that entrepreneurship development is influenced by a multitude of factors. So we are not saying that this is the ultimate solution for households to engage in entrepreneurship. But as I've said, this has not been included in the analysis that has been done in the years. So we see that the probability of starting a business can be boosted when we try to incorporate non-monetary forms of remittances. And of course, there are challenges that arise from the disparity in terms of measuring the value, which is not captured in the theoretical and the empirical findings of non-monetary remittances. So if you ask me about how about the value of the non-monetary, so we did not capture all those things. We just included the behavior of the migrant. And of course, since this is the theoretical model that we developed, hopefully we can also gain a deeper insight by looking at different migrants in Japan also. And of course, we also want to increase the the sample that we use for the model. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to follow and learn something new. Yeah, if you have questions, sir.
Ma'am MJ, thank you. So at this point, we would like to open the floor to questions. So if we have questions from our on-site audience or perhaps from our virtual audience, please feel free to raise them. Okay, so we have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 15 minutes to do this. Yes, please, go ahead.
Hi po. I'm Celine from 2BSME. So, you talked earlier about like the positive and negative effects of remittances. As someone who has relatives that are OFWs, parang I was intrigued when you said that the one negative effect is the dependency of households towards those people who send nga the remittances. Is there any way to like change the mindset of these households in thinking that OFWs are well off, like monetary well off? Because like personally, me and my aunts, I really don't know their financial situation, and I think being aware of this such like very crucial information could help other households also to lessen their dependence on OFW. So is there any way to lessen that negative effect?
Excellent question. How would you?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Actually, I'm looking at the context of Filipino migrants in Japan, and I know that in different countries as well, they have also different experiences. So I will be talking about the experiences of the migrants that I have interviewed, and maybe I can also inject because my experience as I'm not a migrant worker, but yeah. So the dependency problem has been perennial. So because we are a country that is very dependent on the remittance inflows. So even our economic perspective are like we are very dependent on what migrants send us. That's why we have this idea of they are the new heroes, bagong bayani, right? So the problem of this dependency has been there. Like every government has tried to put a solution or stop this dependency problem, but until now we can see that it has not addressed the problem of dependency. So as I've said, majority of the literature trying to address this problem of dependency focuses on entrepreneurship development. That's why they are trying to put on these studies that would make households engage in entrepreneurship, like whatever the migrant sends, invest. But because of this mindset that, as you said, that it's okay because I'm gonna receive anyway. Why would I invest money? So That's the monetary, the money. So, okay, I'll just get the money, consume. Maybe that's one of the reasons why we tried to look into these non-monetary forms of remittances. It's a crucial contribution. Why? Because imagine if your aunt sent you a computer instead, right? So the tendency is, I need money. You can sell your laptop that she sent you, right? It's like changing the mindset. So one of the ways that we can see here is that because money is easily depleted or consumed, sending non-monetary forms of remittances could change the mindset of the household. So yeah, if someone sent you something that you think you're not gonna use anyway, and there's digital platforms anywhere, Facebook just posts something and someone will just say, oh, I want to buy that. So it's like the entrepreneurial mindset will start to create, oh, yeah, it's a goods, it's a product that I received. Why not sell it? So I know these are some of the business environment and the business laws are still very complicated about online selling. But what I'm saying is the mindset of some of a household that receives remittances can be changed when you see that it's not only money that they are receiving. It's not only money that they can get from their relatives abroad. So it gives them a possibility, or it gives them an opportunity to use it in another way. So yeah, so entrepreneurship development studies has been there, and we have seen a lot of like literature that delve on this area. So that's a valid question. Why are we still dependent? Because as I've said, the default setting of households is to consume. I have to use this money for my daily consumption. So we are giving a possible solution or alternative that why not send goods and that the migrant or the households can use to at least change their minds. Oh, I can sell this, right? So I actually read an article that says that it's a qualitative study that um, her sister sent her goods as like bags, and then because she didn't want to use them, she doesn't need them, she started to sell, and then it started like her sister kept on sending these bags, and then the other sister would be like selling them. Yeah, so it's a possible opportunity that would create entrepreneurship for households. Thank you.
Well, it actually sounded familiar because I had an office mate before. She wouldn't get cash, but she'd get bags. So she got a constant flow of inventory that she was able to sell.
Actually,
Yes.
yeah.
So that's also one,
Yeah.
because it could be sourced cheaply from outside.
So the
From
possible limitation is in terms of the customs, of course. Like
Yeah.
you are limited by the idea that this should be sent non-commerciable amount. So, but the thing is, like as I've said, these are personal consumption goods. But probably if you don't use them, and with the internet very available to everyone, then the entrepreneurial mindset can be ignited. It can just make someone an
Yeah.
entrepreneur at that
Yes.
instant.
Very good. All right. I think we have questions also. Sir Joey, please. And then we'll... Sir Erwin, yeah. Sir Joey first. All right. Sir Joey, please.
Okay, yeah, sir, thank you for the question. So, as I've said, the Filipino migrants in Japan has a very special context because of their residency status. So, most of them are permanent residents. But as you met, there are new technical interns who have been in Japan for 3 to 5 years. So, these technical interns are limited. Like they have this contract that at the end of the contract, they have to return to the Philippines. So I think this part of the difference in terms of their status matters when it comes to the return intention. So remember that the one of the assumptions that we made is that at the second period they're returning regardless of how long, but the assumption is they're going to return. So for the technical interns, and their behavior is very different from the permanent residents, because for the permanent residents, it's like they have the option to send or not, because most of their families is already in Japan, like they are married. So they're only supporting maybe relatives, nieces, nephews. But for those technical interns, majority of them are, sending monthly. It's like they went to Japan for work. So the expectation of remittances is higher, like every monthly. So I've also interviewed some of them, and I know like most of their income, like maybe 80% of their income really goes to their household. And these technical interns do not get high wages as compared to their Japanese counterparts. So just for figures maybe, so you will have, it's higher than the Filipino wage system, but it's very low compared to the Japanese. So almost 120,000 to 180,000 yen. That's around maybe 70,000 pesos. It's a lot for the Filipino. Yeah, but in terms of the Japanese, it's very low. So imagine they send 80% of this to their families. So in terms of their remittance behavior, as I would like to say, it's very different. So the probability of investment is lower for these kinds of migrants because nothing is left. And yeah, as I've said, their families are expecting them to send for their daily consumption. So mostly just sending for their households every month. So the probability of entrepreneurship is lower. And in terms of the permanent residents, the last question is very interesting because how will their remittances change if they are staying longer? So the Filipino family is very closely knitted. So even if they have been there for a long time, they still send. It may not be as frequent as before, but they still send. So as I've said, most of them are engaged in this sending goods already, not just money anymore. I mean, they're not sending money because, okay, another study that we did, another paper that we did is there's a gender. Females are more likely to send non-monetary forms of remittances than males. So in this case, we are looking at the permanent residents who are females, and then we see, because based on the stories of these migrants within the Japanese household, even if the husband is providing for the household, the woman is not free to take money and send it to the Philippines.
Mm.
So literature has it that says that they don't want conflict. To avoid conflict, they should rather work. So if you see, I've met a 72-year-old female. She's been married to a Japanese for a lot of years, but she's still working in a factory. And you will wonder why. Because she still needs to send money. It may not be as frequent, but to show her like care and love for her family in the Philippines, she has to work because she doesn't want to get money from the household income. So whatever money she earns, that's the one she uses. So as I've said, there are times that maybe she doesn't have income. So alternative form of remittances are these goods that she can send to her family. And in terms of the entrepreneurship, so in our survey, we asked if they have been involved or is their family involved in a business. And we have the different categories of the businesses that the households are involved in right now. Yeah, it's in the survey questionnaires. Thank you so much.
All right. Maybe we can have one more. I think, Sir Erwin, are you? Oh, we have one from online. All right, great. So from Marilu Lucas. Okay, congratulations, MJ. Your presentation is very interesting. So the question here is, do you think it would be interesting to know the region or ethnic group of the Filipino migrant worker who tends to engage in entrepreneurship more than the others? Are those found in Luzon, Visayas, or in Mindanao? Or are they Ilocanos, Cebuanos, Visayas? So thank you. Maybe it's more
Yes.
focused here on our context.
Yes, actually, the data, we have the data for the residents in the Philippines. Just to simplify it, we just aggregated them in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. But yes, definitely, we can get the like regional distribution of these migrant workers, and most of them are still from Luzon area. Yes, po.
All right. Okay, Sir Joey. Yes.
Yes, po. Education.
Matters.
Yeah. So based on we are going to look at the full model. Yes, po. So when education matters when interacted with the length of stay. So if just the education, it doesn't. Yeah. That's why we try to interact it with the length of stay, and the more years they stayed there, the higher, the lower the probability of sending. More educated migrants who have stayed there for longer years tend to send lower remittances. So these are the professionals who have like permanently got jobs.
So they would tend to invest more.
Yes, po.
Probably. Okay. It's more probable for them to invest more here. All right. Excellent.
Yes. From the students, any question on
Questions?
Japan? Please visit.
Yes, please. Okay, one more.
So I wanted to ask, like, what do you think are some of the policies that should be implemented in the Philippines on whether or not there should be an increase of what W's or increase on education, entrepreneurial education, or like the ones the households?
Yeah, I think all of these policies are in place. We have the program of the government in terms of reintegration. We have the entrepreneurship. I think the government has been addressing this problem since. So everything is in place in terms of migration policies. Like whenever they come back, they have this program of reintegration, engaging the household in businesses. Yeah, but the policy that we see is it's not because they might not be that effective, but it's really on the mindset of the household. So no matter how you teach someone to engage in a business, but because you have people to feed, you need money. The tendency of remittances just still goes to consumption. So that's why the use of remittances in the Philippines is very restrictive. So I've heard from sir in Korea they had this savings program wherein migrants
Forced.
yeah.
Yes.
So they have the savings that
Yeah.
the migrants are required to save for
Forced. So
forced.
when
They're
they
forced
have,
to save. So
when
that
they
kind of
remit, part of it really
goes to
forced.
savings.
Yeah.
So those kinds of policies that could probably help, but yeah, it really depends on the behavior, household and migrants. So we need to change this mindset. We need to change this behavior of the household and the migrants in order for them to really engage in entrepreneurship, not just in paper or not just in policy, but to really help them. Because entrepreneurial education has been there, financial literacy, we have seen all of these programs in place. You just check the website of DMW or OWA, they have all of these programs in place, but the impact or the sustainability of this. And mind you, remittances are good, but it's very fragile.
Yes, fragile.
Yeah, it's not something that you can really hold on to in times of shocks, economic shocks. So this is also one thing that we should be looking at, not just depending on the remittances for our economy. Yeah, thank
Yes.
you.
Let's not look too far. When COVID happened and everyone was locked down, pandemic, even remittances got affected. And those who, for one thing, did not save, we have a very low gross domestic savings rate. Also, gross capital formation rate, we're low in that department as well. No? So you wouldn't have savings to draw upon. You wouldn't have assets to liquidate when something bad happens like that, no, and you get locked down. No? So, maybe we were discussing, maybe as a final note, as we end this, no? Labor exploitation might not really be an ideal development model. Like
Yes,
we were,
definitely.
Ma'am MJ and I were discussing this earlier about Korea, very much close to Japan, okay, but Korea ventured into labor exploitation at some point in their history, but they did not rely on it for that long. Okay? But here in the Philippines, it's quite different. No? We are relying on it. We're really milking, milking it. Okay? And these remittances, no, of course, no, have been, as many have noted, no, keeping the economy afloat and all of those things. No? But we really have to create the opportunities here domestically. Okay? It's good that we have that, no, but it's not ideal. Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Ma'am
Can I
MJ.
just recognize my sub-supervisor is in
In the Zoom,
yes,
all
in
right,
the Zoom,
okay.
Professor Kazuo Inaba, sensei.
All right.
Maybe he's there.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
sensei. Thank you so much for
Your
attending.
advisor, thank you very
My
much for joining.
sub-supervisor.
Yes.
And my supervisor is here.
All
Thank
right.
you so much.
All right. Thank you, Ma'am MJ. Thank you, everyone, for attending. So let me just, as I close this, I would like to bring your attention to our department website. So please visit our website for materials from previous seminars. And of course, with your consent, ma'am, we will be sharing also materials that you would like to share here for knowledge dissemination. And we have economic seminar series videos posted on YouTube and Facebook. You will find them here. And for those of you who would like to request for a certificate, okay, so request forms will be open, but for a limited time only, okay? So we will not entertain email requests for certificate. No? So please use this form. Okay, certificates will only be given to those who attended via Zoom and who accomplished this request form. And for those who successfully complete the request form, okay, kindly wait for the scheduled release of the certificate, right? Okay, I think last thing on the agenda is photo op, no, picture taking with our distinguished guest. So, yes, no. Okay, rock, paper, scissors, Aya and Rainier. All right, so thank you very much. Okay, so we'll just take a picture and go on our merry way. No, it's a weekend, I know. So, happy weekend to everyone. Weekend. Okay. And for our guests in Zoom, may we request you please to turn on your camera so that we could also take your photos. So Rainier is going to take care of it. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Pictures taken. Thank you so much.